I'm joined here by Gerry Boyle, Director of Teagasc. Gerry, how is the Ploughing Championship going for you so far?
Fabulously, the crowds are huge, record attendances. We see the ploughing as a great opportunity for us to meet with all the farmers that support Teagasc throughout the year. We receive about 12 million from farmers, so we're very appreciative of their support. So it's a great opportunity to meet with them and discuss any issues they might have, plans for the future and so on. And over the last couple of years, we focused on particular themes. And this year, we're focusing very much on how farmers can make the best use from their grass resource. And we have an exhibit, a demonstration throughout the ploughing, and it's really, there's a huge interest in it, which is fantastic.
Can you tell me more about that? What's actually happening?
Yeah,
What's it
called? We have what we've established a Grass 10 program, we call it. And essentially Grass 10 means that we're targeting for Irish farmers, not just dairy farmers, but all pastoral farmers in Ireland, to target a production, a utilisation rather, of 10 tonnes of grass per hectare, and to have 10 grazings in a year. Now this is a 4-year campaign, very intensive campaign. We've got tremendous support from all of the industry. We think it's a huge opportunity for us, particularly in the context of Brexit, to really capitalise on how efficient use of grassland can really improve the bottom line for farmers. So obviously this year, I don't know whether many people are aware of it, has been designated by the Minister as the year of sustainable grassland. And the Minister has been fully behind it. We're organising, we have organised rather, a competition for Grassland Farmer of the Year. So that's going to be announced later in the year. So look, the focus is very much on grass. Just to give you one idea, and something that we often emphasise when we're talking to farmers, look, this is all about enhancing your profitability. So if you're a dairy farmer, for every extra tonne of grass that you can utilise per hectare, it's worth 180 euros. So hence, that's why we're focusing so strongly on it. And I'm happy to say that so far there's huge interest in it. And of course, it's all tied in then to the whole revolution around big data. A lot of talk about that in digital agriculture and so on. And as it so happens, the last couple of years as well, we've been setting up a program that we call Pasture Base, where we're recording all the measurements of grass right across the country that farmers are feeding into the system. It's all computerized, in fact, stored on a mobile phone. So the farmer and the farmer's advisor can, literally by looking at their mobile phone, can determine the performance of their grassland on their farm. So look, this is very much a program for the future.
And Gerry, just on the dairy expansion, how is that impacting on Teagasc? Is there enough dairy advisors on the ground?
Yeah, well, I don't know whether people fully appreciate the phenomenal changes since the abandonment of the quota. Irish farmers have responded tremendously. We're well on the way to achieving the 50% increase in production that was set as a target in food harvest. What's going on down on the farm right now, I think you cannot overstate the significance of the change that has taken place. We're heading very quickly the next couple of years towards an average average cow herd and dairy farms of 100 cows. Now naturally that puts pressure on everyone, first and foremost on the farmers. Teagasc is there to serve the farmers of Ireland, and if farmers are under pressure, it comes back onto us. So I would say the immediate and medium-term issue on farms that's causing pressure is the labour situation. Last spring was very challenging for many farmers because they had increased their numbers, probably didn't anticipate the labour pressure. We have to respond to that with the rest of industry. So that's very much a priority right now. But I think it's a huge opportunity. Not since my childhood have Irish farmers been in a position to hire labour. So that's over the next 8 to 10 years, you'll probably need about 2,000 to 3,000 employees on farms. And dairy farming is very seasonal. We did some analysis recently of the seasonality of labour on dairy farms. About 50% of the year's labour requirement occurs during the calving period. Now, that makes it difficult to recruit labour as well, because people when they want employment, they want full-time a lot of the time, so it doesn't suit everyone. That's a challenge. As to whether, we always need more resources, but we depend on farmers and taxpayers. We have to use our resources efficiently. At the moment, we have 250 advisors working on the front line. We have about 80 or so in dairy. We have a number of specialists. What we're trying to do is we've shifted very much towards group delivery through discussion groups, and that's worked. But in an expansion situation, there is a requirement for one-to-one advice. So that's why we set up the dairy expansion program, and Patrick Going, our advisor, is leading that, working with the local advisors in helping farmers to, for example, plan for expansion and identify the funding that will facilitate that expansion. So we certainly could do with people working in those niche areas. And the other area that, again, is associated with expansion, which is very important, is the whole environmental area, particularly around water quality and the requirement to continuously improve water quality. That's going to require Teagasc recruiting specialist environmental advisors who will work closely with what we call the business and technology advisors. But increasingly, environmental issues are becoming more and more technical, and they require specialist people to provide the advice that farmers need.
And are you able to employ or to recruit those on the higher bracket or higher level advisors that you want?
Yeah, well, the difficulty is no more than other branches of the public sector. Since the recession and the moratorium that existed on both recruitment and promotions, and the restrictions around the salary levels at entry grade, it has caused us huge difficulty in recruiting top-class people. Because, I mean, it's great to see the economy taking off generally, but that, of course, bids up wages, and we're competing for talent. And definitely right now, the starting salaries are not competitive, in our view, and particularly for very highly qualified people. I mean, I'm happy to say within Teagasc now we're recruiting right across the board, which is great, but we are recruiting into advisory, research and education people that would have far higher qualifications, because they need to have, than even 10 years ago. And they have alternatives, in the sector.
And how do you get around that difficulty, that recruitment difficulty?
Yeah, well, it's not easy, because obviously we're an independent state agency, but of course we have to get the sanction from not only our Minister for Agriculture, who is very supportive, but also from the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform. So we have to be creative, which I think we are. Also, I'm happy, I think a lot of people who come into Teagasc and understand the organisation know that there is opportunity to have a fantastically rewarding career. So even if the salaries initially are not attractive, over time, with promotion opportunities and so forth, and with the kind of work experience that they will get, we're finding we are able to attract people. It's just that I would like to have a few more arrows in my bow, so to speak, to target people and to reward them.
Gerry, just on the Green Cert, it was revised recently. What changes have been made?
Well, we're always revising our education programs in a whole lot of ways. Mostly it's the requirement is to adapt the program for modern needs. So, there's a huge and increasing emphasis on business management, financial management on farms. There's a huge new emphasis around sustainability. But we've recently undertaken a much more fundamental review of our whole education program. We've turned it upside down, and we're actually education. When you put in place an education program, you're talking. It survives and lasts for a minimum of 30 years. It's difficult to change your educational program, your approach. So we're looking to 2050 in our recent review, and I guess what I would like to see definitely is more of an emphasis on the entrepreneurial skills that students require when they go back to their farms, because modern farming really is about entrepreneurship. It's about seeing opportunities, not being, for farmers, young farmers in particular, not to feel restricted by say, the amount of land they might have inherited, to look to opportunity. So that's going to have to be at the core of our programs. And also, we're looking as well at one of the issues we find in agricultural programs right across the country in our 7 colleges is there's often a mismatch between a student's appreciation of the classroom situation and the practical. Our students much prefer and thrive in the practical educational context. So we're looking at what we need to do to make the experience closer to the actual farm situation. So we're changing the whole pedagogy to focus on what we call problem-based learning. So when a student is studying finance, for example, or management on their farms, the context always has to be, what might this mean for a real farm situation? You know, because otherwise it becomes just a theoretical exercise, and we find our students, that's not what they want.
And Gerry, as demand for the construction courses and engineering, as that picks up, is that having an impact on demand for Green Cert?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And we anticipated that. I mean, in the recession, more students flock to agricultural college. It's the kind of it's a hedging strategy, I suppose. When the economy picks up, as sure as night follows day, you'll find that the numbers going into ag college will drop off. This year, we're definitely seeing a reduction there will be a reduction in enrolments in some colleges, not in every college, in some colleges. That's entirely predictable, but obviously, of course, a cause for concern. At the same time, in terms of capacity, of course, we still have a huge numbers waiting for part-time courses because of the RDP incentives, the Rural Development Programme incentives for farmers under 40. So that's masking a little bit, I think, the actual reality. Definitely, if the economy continues to pick up, I think it's pretty clear that we will have fewer enrolments at what we call level 5 and level 6, or level 5 rather was the entry for the vocational programs. We are, of course, involved with universities and the institutes of technology in delivering higher level, and the higher level enrolments seem to have held up. So we think what's happening is young people that mightn't perhaps contemplate going to college, going to university or institute of technology, and would have come to Teagasc, they're actually seeking and getting employment. And that's causing a problem for us, but as I said earlier, it's also causing a difficulty for recruiting labour on farms.
And during the boom, during the boom, there was some question about the sustainability of the agricultural colleges and whether there would be amalgamations. Is there any concern about that?
Well, I would say it wasn't so much during the boom, but when I took over this job, it's nearly 10 years ago now, we were in a boom situation then, and there was a question about the number of colleges. As I say, Teagasc operates 4 colleges that ownership is vested in us on behalf of the state, but we also subvent 3 what we call private colleges. And there was a big issue around the sustainability of that network. But then, of course, what happened? We went into recession, and that issue was put on the back burner because, as I said, you could predict it. The numbers started flocking back into agriculture, and we were agricultural colleges, and we were at the pin of our collar to actually satisfy that demand right across the country. We're now heading into another period, I think, when the rationalisation issue will come on the agenda. Not immediately, because I say there is, at the moment, you have the backlog of substantial numbers of students still waiting for places on the part-time programs, but that also is dependent, our ability to service those students is dependent on our access to resources in the colleges. But definitely, I think we're looking into the future to the need to look again very carefully at our capital resources, because the challenge always is every student that enters any of those 7 colleges, one is the horticultural college, should and has a right to expect the same educational experience in terms of facilities and so on. So you cannot, if the numbers diminish, you can't deliver that satisfactorily across 7 colleges. That's just the reality. But it's not an immediate issue, but it's something certainly we have to be planning for.